Hi, and welcome to the Thriving Entrepreneurs 15 Minutes. She is Rochelle Leering, entrepreneur coach.
He is David Foster, founder coach. Welcome.
And yes, we're still trying to figure out what the difference between a founder and an entrepreneur is.
Yeah, that's a really
That's,
lively discussion.
yes, topic for another day. Today is how does an entrepreneur work on their business instead of just for it? Rochelle?
What a topic, once again,
Mm-hmm.
but a very, very, very relevant one. Where do we start? I think it's easy and tempting to stay busy
Mm-hmm.
with the tasks of the day at hand. To start, your day off with whatever needs to happen, with emails, with client demands, with team demands. But if we never go back to that role that we need to have of the overseer and the strategist, we definitely lose out on opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
We risk certain things, and we might even go out of business, not
Mm-hmm.
even spending the time on the business. That'd be my
Mm-hmm.
first take. How about
Mm-hmm.
you?
Mm-hmm. I think that's a good way to put it. I think in some ways both are necessary, especially when you are starting your business. But let's talk about the difference between being in your business and being on your business or working on your business. And for me, the analogy
Good
of a
one.
ship or a boat makes a lot of sense. You've got the boat that needs to be maintained, you need to put gas in it, you need to paint it, but somebody needs to guide it. And I think it's a continuum. There's a lot of gray area between the two ends, but you need to be able to work on your business because if you only fix and maintain your ship, you don't actually know where it's going.
Yep, that's right. And just to add on, I see people in the comments saying they might not even hear us or see us. I hope we're good. If we're not, let us know if you can't hear or see us. We're looking at the comments. Yeah, regarding that and being that captain on the ship, there's so much other people can take over.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much others can be delegated to, work
Mm-hmm.
that they could do, but they cannot, nobody can take on that role of the owner or the founder or the entrepreneur who knows the direction of the company and who should be aware of the direction of the company and have that angle of alignment going on. Are we still aligned with the market? Are we still aligned with the clients? Are we still aligned as a team? And if there's nobody scanning that environment, let's say, I think we're putting ourselves at risk. So I think, yeah, it's a balancing act, but I think it's an ongoing process that should be looked at, maybe even every week.
Yeah, every week or every day. But I think that it shifts, right? When you start a business and you are the doer of the maintenance and you're also the captain of the ship, you have to do both. But as you get more and more people who help you with the things that need to be done, and that's a good way to think about it, the the working in your business is the thing that gets you the money. It's the thing that you do for the client or your customers.
Right.
But working on it is the thing that enables you to do the thing to get the money. And
Right.
so as you get more and more people that help you, you can delegate more, which we talked about last week, and you do more guiding than doing. And I think that's really, really critical to look at and asking yourself questions about how am I delegating? What's the thing that takes me the most time to do repetitively, right? And what are the biggest obstacles for success? Those are great questions to start with, especially when you're taking on a team or you're adding people. Like, what do I not need to do anymore so that I can do more of guiding the ship?
Yep. And I also believe that when you are growing, you need to constantly keep an eye on those exact questions and elements of
Hmm.
the company in order to steer in the right direction. Because indeed, you're going to need more people, and thus you need to know what's needed. But as you say, you need to still be in your ideal role, meaning that where you are of most added value. And if you cannot look at that from a bird's
Yeah.
perspective and not wanting to see what can be improved about that, I think you're really missing a point here of indeed growing into a business that's sustainable, but also makes sense for everybody involved in that team.
Yes, yes, exactly. And I think John makes a really good point here. Hi, John. Uh, the having a mindset or having a focus on who can do something instead of
Yeah.
how to do it, that is really the mark of somebody that's entering into leadership. Because you start a business and you're the one doing all the things, and then it's really, in some ways, your first task moving into leadership is, who can I get to do this? How can I help them? How can I serve them? How can I coach them? How can I set up responsibility and boundaries and guidelines for them so that it takes me less time and I can go and work on the next thing?
Yeah. And this all has to do with that phase of going from early startup
Hmm.
or beginning stages of a business where it starts to be successful
Hmm.
towards really growing and
Hmm.
really leading that team.
Hmm.
You change as a business, but you in your role should change with that. You should redefine who you are
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
reinvent yourself anew. That is a constant process. It never changes or it never ends. It does change. But the question I would like to ask you is, why do you think so many of us don't get to this work or not spend enough time on this? What is the most common thing that you hear, or do you think people have or excuse have for not doing that?
Well, I thank you for the softball. I think the biggest thing is the hustle culture. I think it's the idea that if I stay busy, if I quote unquote work hard, if I show that I'm doing things by sending out emails at 7 o'clock in the morning or 11 o'clock at night, or I introduce a project or a result with, this took me all week. Unfortunately, culture really values that. But one good way to think about it is, it's far more significant to your success and achieving your goals to use your effort to focus on the right thing, as opposed to working really hard on something that actually doesn't make a difference. So you could work really, really hard at something and actually make what you're doing slightly better, but if that thing doesn't make the machine work better or doesn't make you get closer to your goals, well, what difference did it make?
That makes sense. And to answer it for myself, I do hear a lot of people who understand this, who understand the concept of needing to work on the business, obviously. But it's always a matter of time choices. Like, do I spend my time on putting out
Hmm.
this fire, or do I go for, half a day off or a full day off, right? Quote
Hmm.
unquote off, to work on the business. It
Hmm.
never seems that important. It's never that urgent. While it gets urgent when you don't spend much time on it and you just
Mm.
kind of slack off there. I think that if you were to implement that weekly, kind of like recurring thing where you ask yourself those 5 to 10 questions or look at those 5 to 10 elements of the company, it would not be such a big thing. You don't have to like take yourself out of the business every week, but it would be a way to make smarter choices that is more aligned with a longer strategy than just with in the heat of the moment.
Yeah, and you make a really good point about the difference between the urgent and the important, because it is urgent and you do have to put out the fire if your house is on fire. But after the fire goes out, you don't go to the next thing that's shiny or attracting your attention. You go to, well, why did the fire start? How can I build things, change things, create things so that the fire doesn't happen again? And that's, in a lot of ways, the difference between on and in.
That makes sense. I just want to point out there's 2 comments. One by Josh Perry. Working in the business too much distorts reality and prevents discovering blind spots. Yep.
Yeah,
I think that's
distract.
basically the point. Yep.
Yep.
And then Brendan, how do you go about focusing on high level vision and leadership while still objectively auditing yourself as an employee of your own business? That's a good question.
That's a great question, Brandon. And I would say, some of the questions to ask yourself, or ways to look at it there, is, what is your actual job description that you've given yourself in the business? And if somebody had that job description, how would you then evaluate the person doing that job? So an awful lot of times people who sort of own and operate at the same time, especially if they started the business, they don't have a lot of clarity on that. And once once I hire somebody or Rochelle hires me to do something, her job about that completely changes. And she necessarily has to let go and let me screw it up and find my way and change the folders around and do things differently than she would, but maybe achieve the same goals. And the difference between her doing the job and her watching me do the job or mentoring me or advising me or I'm employed with her, those are two completely separate things. So Brandon,
Right.
if you're looking at, how do I do things in the job and at the same time guide it, you kind of have to look at your own job description, even if it's just for you, and say, all right, I'm going to spend this amount of time or this amount of effort doing things, and also, move the priorities around so that the urgent doesn't always displace the important. Would you agree with that?
You
Does
mean
that sound
me or
crazy? Yeah.
Brendan? Yeah. Yeah, no. Sounds perfect. And the thing is that what you're describing here is being critical and being objective about yourself. Basically,
Hmm.
just looking at your performance, but also looking at yourself from another perspective. Am I still able to overview everything in the right way? Am I still able to see what's really going on beyond the regular output? Do I actually make sure that I'm in my leadership position while I'm also in my indeed operational position? But
Hmm.
as somebody just points out, John just says, it's even better to find somebody or have somebody who can mirror that, who can reflect that back and see if you're missing anything, because we all have blind spots. That's just part of being human. So I think indeed, when it comes to this, it comes with a lot of self-leadership and self-accountability. But if this is not a recurring thing for you, not a weekly recurring thing in your calendar that you really dedicate as holy time, aka don't have any other meetings that you let
Yes.
slip through and
Yes.
just,
Yes.
like, oh, this is more important, I'll fix it now. This is really going to be a game changer for the company if you really take this seriously.
Yeah, and I just want to say, I know you said you want to be critical of what you're doing in the company. And
Yep.
for some people that means analysis, can I do this better? And other people means, well, I should tell myself I suck. We definitely mean the first. Like look at it and evaluate it and
Yeah.
and don't make it personal at all.
Factual.
And yeah, and in the last 2 minutes, I will say this, that coders, engineers often have a really great attitude towards working on instead of in, because most engineers self-identify as completely lazy. And when they do something once, they never want to do it ever again and they automate it. And if you can pull
Right.
that idea out of coding and say, this is what I'm going to do for my business, I'm going to make sure that we went through this process. I'm going to write it down. I'm going to tell everybody. I'm going to make it accessible. I'm going to make it changeable for different conditions. And then I don't have to think about it very much at all as we go forward. And now we have
Yep.
1 minute left and you have the floor.
Okay, cool. So I just wanted to add, there's some people in here, some entrepreneurs here that are solopreneurs that don't have a team yet, or just a really small team, and that are
Good
maybe
point.
thinking like, this is only, when you have employees or people working with you. No,
Yes,
this
you're
is for
absolutely right.
everybody. This is something that I would highly recommend to do in your time every week. Spend your time on where is this going, and my message
Mhm.
is my message still aligned? Is my market still aligned? What can I do better for my clients? What can be changed in my processes? This is for everybody, and just good to
Uh,
point that out, I think.
Yeah, that's an excellent point, because when you're on your own, you have to spend time guiding your own ship.
Yep.
So we are at the limit. We're about to
Yeah.
click over. We appreciate everybody who's joined
For
us.
sure.
We're doing it
Yeah.
again next week, technology willing, and we will talk to you then. Thank you,
Yeah. Thanks
everyone.
so much for interacting. Cheers. See you next
Cheers.
week.